Hi, welcome to the lesson on concepts of Spark. The first concept we are going to learn is RDD, which stands for Resilient Distributed Data Set. In this video, we are going to discover terminologies like what is RDD, what are the partitions, what are the transformations on an RDD, how does task look like, and what is a lineage in RDD transformations. The first thing about RDD is it performs manipulation over data. Before we take a formal look at RDD, let's try to have a look like how does variable manipulation look like in a programming language. Let's say we are using Python and we create a variable, an integer object u which has a value 1, and then we create another object by transforming the content of u. You can create new objects, and here in this example, x is the final object which depends on v and w, and v over here in turn depends on u. So by performing set of operations on an object, we end up transforming it and creating a new object altogether with a new content and new value. This was a case of a simple object, but same can be applied if you have a complex object like say a list. Now, u is a list of integers and you try to perform the same operation as before, that is multiply each element of u with 2 to end up creating another list which is v. We can have another list object w, and again here x depends on v and w. Essentially we are adding together all the elements of v and w to generate a new list object x. So this is about variable manipulation. The common thing in both the examples were that they happened on a single machine in a single process, and the amount of data was very limited, very small. Just like variables can be manipulated through a sequence of transformation, for larger data, we can create a distributed data set object so that it can work on different portions of data in parallel. Something very similar to MapReduce. Let's take a look. Now we are going to develop the intuition of resilient distributed data set. Let's say we have a data file which contains a city, country, and sales of some product. And our intention is to generate the total sales from this file. So the total sales will be sum of 10, 28, 12, and so on. In the first step, how can we create some kind of distributed variable, an object which contains distributed information to work on different sections of the actual data file. So the first step will be to create that data set which is distributed in nature, which will be able to read different portions of the actual data set, actual data file, and those different portions, which we will call as partitions, can be processed in parallel on the same machine or across different machines in a cluster. Let's say we create 3 partitions in our distributed data set object, which is reading from the file. In the next step, we will process each partition in parallel and construct a new data set, which will contain only the sales value. So essentially, we are going to process each record line by line, and we will select only the sales value because we need the total of the sales value in the final result. All these 3 partitions can be processed in parallel. In the next step, what we can do is we can add together all the sales value in each partition. And again, this process will be completely independent across partitions and fully parallel. So we end up having the sum of the sales across each partition. And to get the total sum, we just need to collect together all the values of each partition and generate the final result, which is simply the summation. So you can see with a series of transformation on the actual file, we can parallelize the operation and generate the final result. Let's see a few more examples which happen on the same data set. This time we have the same data set, but we would like to get all the records for the country Germany. So we have two records for Germany, one for the Berlin and one for the Munich. Again, we will construct a distributed data set which will work on different portions of the actual file, and these different portions can be called as partitions, which will be processed in parallel. Again, we generate three portions or three partitions. We read the input data line by line, and here we will output, or we will keep only those records where the country matches Germany. So this is how it will look like. The third partition will be empty because that input data it receives has no record for the country Germany. And for the first and second partition, there is one record each for Germany, and that is what will be the output. Let's take one more example of understanding the distributed data set. Here we have the same data set which contains city, country, and sales information, but this time we would like to know the total sales, not overall, but for each country. As you can see, for Germany, the total sales will be 10 plus 12, which is 22. For Italy, it will be 20 plus 32, which is 60, and so on. Here, again, we will construct some object, which will be our distributed data set, which will process different portions of the data file called as partitions in parallel. We generate three partitions over here. The good thing is we can control the number of partitions as well. There could be some kind of default formula to generate the number of partitions, but based on the size of the data and the type of processing we are performing, we can choose a higher or a lower number of partitions as well. We are keeping three partitions just to understand things, but based on our use cases, number of partitions can change. So again, we go forward with three partitions, and we process all the partitions in parallel to create a new distributed data set in a result, which will contain only the country and sales value as content of each partition. Why is this so? Because our final intention is to generate the total sales for each country. We don't need to worry about what it was the city. Afterwards, we will process the previous data set, all partitions in parallel, and construct a new data set by collecting all the values for each country. So if you have seen the previous videos on MapReduce, it's something like the country acts as a key and the sales act as a value. And because of this shuffle operation, we will collect together all the values, all the sales for each country. And again, let's say we have three partitions. Each partition will be processed in parallel, where we will be adding together all the values, which are the sales. And the final result will be the country and the total sales happening in that country. Okay, so we have seen some of the examples where this distributed data set makes our processing parallel, which in turn helps us to deal with or process large volume of data with faster execution. Let's now officially define RDD. RDD stands for Resilient Distributed Data Set. So far, we have understood what does this distributed data set mean. We will uncover more things, and we will also try to understand what does this resilient mean. An RDD is essentially an object which defines functions with the help of which you can manipulate the data of a file or another RDD, or you can process the data as well. It partitions the input data. You can also control how many partitions you would like to have, and each partition can be processed in parallel. Different partitions can be processed across different machines in a cluster. It has resilience, which simply means while processing, if one of the partition fails because of some temporary issues, then that task which was working on that specific partition is automatically restarted. With the help of lineage, it avoids full data scan of the input file, as we will see later. The key takeaway is if any processing fails, because there could be multiple processes running across different machines, if one of the machine goes down, then processes running on those machines will terminate, and hence those processes will be automatically restarted. This thing will happen n number of times, where n is by default 4 in Spark, but you can control that as well. So because of some temporary issues, your whole application is not going to fail. It's resilient to such transient failures. RDDs are immutable. So whenever you construct an RDD and you want to change the transformation, either you have to reconstruct it or you have to apply one extra transformation on that RDD to generate a new RDD. Essentially, whatever set of operations you define while creating an RDD cannot be altered. How do you create RDD? You can create an RDD from a file, which can be in local or HDFS or S3. You can also generate an RDD by reading the data of any RDBMS table, or if you have already constructed an RDD, by transforming the RDD, you get a new RDD. So these are some of the ways by which you generate an RDD. Again, you can construct an RDD from other sources like a NoSQL database or a PubSub or something like Kafka. If we talk about the variable manipulation, two examples we have seen a few slides ago, there is some kind of lineage. There is some kind of dependency. Over here, V depends on U, X depends on V and W both. So the lineage will look something like this. You have U object, V depends on it, and then you have some other object W, and X depends on V and W both. So this lineage is a graph. It should be a directed acyclic graph without any cycles, and with information of about arrow, like which is the parent and which is the child. Over here, U is the parent for V, and V is the parent for X. So this lineage provides a dependency with which you can understand who depends on whom. In RDD as well, there is a lineage information. What you can do is, whenever an RDD is created or it is transformed, there is a lineage information which is kept by Spark in memory. Whenever you add transformation to the RDD, that lineage information is updated. This lineage essentially keeps the information like what has to be done when the result will be asked. There are two types of operations on the RDD, which we will discuss in the coming lessons. I'm just giving you an overview. One is transformation and one is action. Transformation update the lineage. They instruct Spark what has to be done. And action is something which triggers, which executes the actual lineage. Actions are the operations which demand the result of the data processing. Lineage helps in the concept of lazy evaluation, which again we will discover in the coming videos. And as we will see now, that lineage is essential to avoid any reprocessing. And when it comes to reprocessing, I mean reprocessing the entire source. With lineage information, that full source reprocessing can be avoided. So what we have seen is there could be some input file or input source from which we can construct an RDD to read different portions across different partitions. Different partitions of the RDDs are processed in parallel, and there is one task for each partition. So if there are 4 partitions in an RDD, there will be 4 tasks, each working for one partition in the cluster. Then you may be interested to create another RDD by filtering out some of the invalid or not required fields or records of the parent RDD. Afterwards, you may be interested to transform each of the record of the filtered RDD, and this is how it works. You can think of the case where we were reading the sales file. You may filter out the records where you are interested only in the country, say Germany and UK. And then you would like to transform the record to fetch only the sales value and only the country, and you don't need city. So that kind of transformation or selection you can do. And then there could be some kind of grouping activity which requires data to be shuffled, and that will construct a new RDD altogether. So before and after shuffling, the number of partitions can change, as we can see over here. Before shuffling, that there were 4 partitions in this RDD, and after shuffling, there were lesser number of partitions. There could be more or equal number of partitions as well. But the point is, after shuffling, you can control the number of partitions in the result RDD, which will be different from the previous RDD. Here, let's say if one of the RDD partition fails during processing. So I'm going to highlight this. While processing, say this partition failed. Now, in order to recompute this partition, maybe a new task is launched on another machine. With the help of the lineage, you can travel back, and if you hit the input source, you will be required to read only this portion of the input. And by reading this portion of input, your entire pipeline can be regenerated. So you don't need to scan entire source, but a specific portion of the source needs to be reread, and hence the corresponding parent partitions will be recomputed to get the computation done for this partition. That is how lineage helps our RDDs to be resilient to temporary failures, and it also provides optimization when it comes to reading the source file during a failure. Now we have understood some logical concepts about RDD. We will see RDDs in action, and we have to uncover a lot more things about RDD in depth. So this was around building the intuition around resilient distributed data sets. Let's try to address some of the frequently asked questions. At this point of time, there would be many questions coming to your mind. Feel free to post them in the comments so that we can discuss it. Let's try to address some of the frequently asked questions. One question is, why do we need to create multiple RDDs? Why can't we update any existing RDD? Well, the answer is RDDs are immutable. Once they are created, you cannot modify it. Moreover, to update the RDD, you can reconstruct it, or you can create another RDD by transforming this current RDD. There is no performance penalty many a times. Why? Because RDDs do not contain the data. They only contain the information, like what has to be done when computation will happen. And computation happens only at the end of the pipeline when you actually ask for the result. We will see more about it, like what is action. There is an operation called as action, which triggers the pipeline, which triggers the execution lineage of the RDD to give us the result. So unless any action is called, there is no data movement happening. So you can safely construct an RDD. Moreover, many a times, adding an extra transformation to an RDD, unless it is causing a data shuffle, also does not add any performance penalty, because Spark tries to compact different transformations together in a single stage. We will talk about stages again later on, but the key takeaway is many a times adding an extra transformation which does not cause shuffle does not incur any extra performance penalty. So you can safely add one more layer of transformation if you want to modify the content of the data when computation happens. Or you can just recreate the RDD if you think like you have constructed an RDD from an incorrect file. The second question is, okay, if multiple RDDs are created, one corresponding to each transformation, let's say you have a transformation around filtering the data, one transformation around selecting specific fields. Maybe you can have lots of other transformations, like you want to project the field after modifying it. So you end up creating multiple RDDs for each transformation. Wouldn't the data be duplicated across each RDD? The answer is no, because RDDs do not contain the data. Rather, they maintain the pointer to the actual data, and they read the data when the action is called. Again, we'll talk about action later on. But the point is, RDDs contain either the pointer to the actual data, or they contain the information about what kind of transformation has to be applied on the parent RDD in case you are creating an RDD from another RDD. This RDD lineage maintains the information, and this will be executed when action is called. When a user wants the final output, this pipeline is going to be triggered and data will be processed on the fly, only at the time of action. So intermediate output may be produced, as we have seen, like your intermediate output can contain some of the country and sales information and not contain other fields. But they will be temporary, they will be fully transient, they will be kind of destroyed once your application terminates, and the entire data file from the input source will not be duplicated across different layers of the transformation. Let's talk about two more questions. The third question is, what does resilience mean in RDD? Resilience means fault tolerance. So there are different partitions in an RDD. Every partition is processed in parallel across different tasks. And if one of the partition fails because of some temporary issues like machine going down or network outage, it is automatically restarted. This automatic restart happens configured number of times. You can increase or decrease the value, but the point is it will be automatically restarted. Also, only the portion of data that the process was supposed to read will be scanned, and entire source won't be reread. The entire source won't be reread. And this is possible because we have the lineage, which helps us trace back to the parent RDDs and understand what portion of the input needs to be reread so that you are able to perform the computation which your failed process was doing. So failure while processing a partition is handled transparently, and many a times as an end user, you won't even notice that. Let's talk about the last question. What is the benefit of being distributed for an RDD? Well, I think being distributed is the most important benefit when it comes to handling large amount of data. It is because of being distributed that you are able to create partitions and process each of the partitions in parallel. Also, with the help of being distributed in nature, you can get the results of data processing faster, or you can meet the timelines, you can meet the SLA, even if there is heavyweight data analysis, just by scaling out the cluster, by increasing the capacity of the entire cluster, which can be done by adding more number of nodes or increasing the capacity of each single node. I hope you got a feeling of what will RDD look like. We'll talk more about RDD as we go ahead, but in the next video, we'll take one more concept of a Spark, that is, how does the architecture of a Spark look like, where we will talk about Spark context and cluster managers. So thank you for watching this video. I hope the next video also helps you.